Have you ever felt like you've become the bank and the charity foundation of your own family? You grew up independent, working yourself to the bone, saving every little bit. But the moment you finally achieve something, a decent home, a stable job, everyone suddenly assumes you're doing well now, helping the family is only natural. No one asks whether you're exhausted. No one asks whether you want to help. They simply make decisions on your behalf. Hello everyone, I'm Hannah. Today I want to tell you about the day my life took a completely different turn. Sounds dramatic, right? But it really was. It was a perfectly normal morning. I was standing at the entrance of my new penthouse in Minneapolis, the first home in my life that I could proudly say, "This is mine, entirely mine." I was holding a cup of coffee, my hair still a bit messy, and the only thing on my mind was whether I should buy a few more plants or hang another painting that weekend. I was 29, working in logistics, spending years buried in spreadsheets, delivery schedules, and unpaid overtime no one ever noticed. I was used to staying late at the office, used to driving home alone on the highway when the city was already glowing in lights. All for one simple goal, to have a place of my own. Not a shared rental, not a temporary couch, not something borrowed. And finally, I made it. A penthouse on the 20th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the whole city. To me, it wasn't real estate. It was a declaration. Hannah no longer lives for anyone's expectations. Hannah lives for herself. And right at the moment I was soaking in that feeling, my mom, Linda, showed up at the door. Next to her were my dad Richard, my younger sister Emily, and my older brother John. All of them carrying boxes and shopping bags, looking like they had just come back from a mall. My mom didn't knock. She opened the door and said immediately, like she was giving a weather report, "Emily will be moving in with you. We already packed her things." I froze. My eyes moved from one family member to another, coffee still in my hand. You know that feeling when your brain kind of lags? That was exactly me. It took a few seconds before I managed to say something very basic. What did you say, Mom?" Linda walked straight into the apartment, her high heels clicking on the wooden floor that I had spent weeks choosing the perfect shade for. She glanced around and continued, completely natural, as if everything had been decided ages ago. "Emily needs a place to stay for a while. She's figuring out her job and finances. Your place is big. Leaving it for one person is wasteful. It makes the most sense for her to stay here." Behind her, Emily held a stack of boxes, smiling awkwardly. And those boxes? They did not look like just for a few days. They looked like someone who had planned an entire move. Let me explain a bit. Emily is the golden child of the family. Since we were young, whenever Emily had a problem, breakups, job loss, rent due, you name it, everyone would rush to fix it for her. She grew up knowing she always had a soft place to fall. Me, the complete opposite. I started working at 16, studied and worked at the same time, paid for everything myself. In college, when I asked my parents for help with tuition, the answer was, "You're old enough to take care of yourself. We need to save money so Emily can go to university." I didn't argue. I just worked more. Year after year, I got used to relying only on myself. And because I could handle things, everyone assumed I was always okay. And when you're okay, people feel entitled to take a little, ask for a little, squeeze in a little, because you'll manage. So that moment when my entire family stood at the door of my penthouse with the sentence, "Emily will move in with you," it wasn't just a sentence. It was a pattern repeating itself, just upgraded to a whole new level. I took a deep breath and kept my voice steady. I just moved in 2 weeks ago. No one told me Emily needed a place. Mom didn't even blink. Well, now you know. Besides, you have 2 bedrooms. What are you going to do with all that space alone? Having Emily here will make it less lonely. I turned to my dad, hoping someone, anyone, would say, maybe we should ask Hannah first. But he only shrugged. The "your mom already decided" kind of shrug. He muttered, "It's just temporary. Once she gets back on her feet, she'll leave." Temporary. I almost laughed. In my family, temporary means we don't know when, but definitely not soon. Temporary stay, years. Temporary loan, never repaid. John didn't defend me either. He just looked around the penthouse, eyes scanning the furniture, kitchen, windows, like he was appraising everything. And he dropped this half-joking, half-bitter line. "Nice place. You sure spend a lot, huh?" I answered plainly, "I make money. I spend money." He chuckled, slightly mocking. "Yeah, we all know. You're the most successful one in the family." It sounded like praise, but underneath was a mountain of resentment. To him, my success meant I automatically became the emergency wallet, the safety raft, the housing option for everyone who needed one. Meanwhile, he's 32 and still living with my parents. That's normal. Mom was already walking around my home like a real estate agent. "This living room is good. Kitchen too. That room must be the guest room, right? Emily will take that one. You don't need it anyway." That line, "you don't need it anyway," made me want to laugh. I had plans for that room, for every corner of this home. This was the space I had dreamed of for years, worked overtime for, sacrificed sleep for. And within minutes, it was talked about like unused empty space perfect for someone else to occupy. Emily finally spoke. Softly. "Thanks in advance, sis. I know it's sudden, but I promise I won't bother you." Sounds familiar? That kind of asking where everything is already decided and your only role is to say yes and be the good person. In the past, I would have swallowed the discomfort and said, "Sure, stay." But lately, something in me has shifted. Maybe because it was the first time I ever had a place that truly felt like mine. Maybe because I've spent too many years living my life for others. Or maybe because I saw this moment coming and decided I wouldn't let the cycle repeat again. Honestly, I wasn't surprised they wanted to move Emily in. Knowing my family, my home, because I'm the successful one, automatically becomes the family resource. And when there's a problem, they will always pick the easiest, most convenient solution. Let Emily stay with Hannah. Done. Only this time, I didn't want to be the cheap, quick, convenient solution. I set my coffee down and smiled politely. "Let me get drinks for everyone. Coffee, juice, whatever you want." Mom waved her hand. "No need. Let's just get this done. Richard, John, bring her stuff to that room so we can see how to arrange it." They started moving around my house as if it had been theirs for years. Opening doors, checking closets, pointing here and there, discussing where Emily's bed should go. And I just stood there watching, feeling like I was re-watching an old play. Same lines, same actions, same attitudes. Except this time, the stage was the home I loved most. And in my head, one sentence rang very clearly. No, not this time. I had prepared for this. I knew this day would come. The day the family shows up with boxes and says, "Just for a while." And I had already decided. I am no longer anyone's backup plan. So when Mom cheerfully led them down the hallway, pointing, "That must be the guest room, right?" I followed behind, my heart beating a little fast, but my voice steady. I had been waiting for this exact moment. Mom put her hand on the door handle confidently, ready to open it like it was her own house. Dad, Emily, and John stood behind her, ready to bring the boxes in, and I stood slightly to the side, watching the whole scene in slow motion. Do you know the feeling when you're the only one in the room who knows what's about to happen, and everyone else has no clue? That was me. And the moment the door swung open, I'll tell the rest later. But that was the first day I realized, if I don't build a wall to protect my life, no one else will do it for me. When Linda put her hand on the guest room doorknob, the entire family lined up behind her like a squad about to invade. I stood at the end of the hallway, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Not because I was scared, but because this was the first time in my life I was choosing not to sacrifice myself. The door burst open, and everyone froze. My mom stopped dead in her tracks, her hand still gripping the knob, eyes wide as if she had just discovered a crime scene. My dad blinked twice, like he thought his eyesight was playing tricks on him. John blurted out, "What the hell?" And Emily, she held her box of belongings, her mouth slightly open, so stunned she didn't know whether to set the box down or cling to it. Because behind that door wasn't the bright, spacious guest room with big windows they were expecting. There was no bed, no closet, no windows, nothing. Just a wall. A tall, clean, freshly painted white wall sealing off the entire room. Yes, I built a wall. A literal wall. A wall to shield my entire life. My mom whipped around, voice cracking. "What is this? Hannah, what is this?" I crossed my arms, leaned casually against the doorframe, as calm as if a cat had just walked by. "Oh, that's my private studio. I remodeled it. The contractors finished last week." My family stared at me like I had just confessed to seizing the White House. My dad stepped forward and tapped the wall, as if checking whether it was real or a prank. You actually built a wall? Hannah, you blocked off the entire room?" I nodded. "Yes." John looked at me like I had lost my mind. You're insane. Who builds a wall to seal off a bedroom?" I smiled. People who want peace. And that was the truth. When I bought this penthouse, I knew that sooner or later, someone in my family would need a temporary stay, a few days to reset, or a place to be less stressed. But in reality, once they stay, they never leave. And I was exhausted. So before I even moved in, I hired an architect, a construction crew, submitted paperwork to the building, and completely redesigned the guest room area. The guest room was now a private studio with no access from inside the apartment, completely sealed off. It was my space, not anyone else's. Mom's face turned red, her voice shaking. "Hannah, you knew we were bringing Emily today, didn't you? You did this on purpose to stop her from living here, didn't you?" I looked straight into her eyes. "I did this so this home is mine. And so anyone who wants to move in has to ask me first." She stepped back like I'd just said something monstrous. You're selfish, Hannah. This is your family." I inhaled deeply, keeping my voice steady. "Mom, family doesn't mean taking whatever they want, demanding whatever they need, or imposing their wishes on me. I worked 13 years to buy a place where I feel safe. I don't owe anyone a place to live. I'm not the quick fix for everyone else's problems." My dad stepped in, trying to soften the atmosphere. But Emily is struggling. She needs somewhere temporary. Family helps each other. I answered immediately. I've been helping my whole life. I'm tired. John snapped, frustrated. Oh my God, Hannah! Building a wall just to keep your family out? You're on some petty, extreme level right now. I looked at him, not angry, just amused. I'm not petty. I'm protecting myself. I know you, Mom, Dad. You would automatically think this room belongs to Emily, or that someday someone else can crash here. And I don't want that to happen. That's all. Emily stood frozen, her face pale, but not in anger, in realization. She whispered, You really did all this? You planned all of it? Just so no one could come in? I turned to her. Not to push you away, to protect myself. I've spent too many years living for everyone else. The hallway fell silent. You know that kind of silence where you can suddenly hear the air conditioner? That was it. Mom's voice suddenly shifted, cold, brittle. Fine. I understand now. Clearly this place doesn't welcome family anymore. Let's go. My dad bent down to gather the bags. John grabbed the boxes, muttering under his breath. Emily set her box down, then picked it up again, like she didn't even know where it belonged anymore. They left the apartment heavy and disappointed, as if I had betrayed the whole bloodline. The door closed behind them. The penthouse fell silent, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. I knew that the moment that wall went up, a part of my family dynamic collapsed. But also in that moment, a part of me was rebuilt, a part I had lost long ago. The right to live my own life. That wall didn't just block a bedroom. It blocked the years I spent sacrificing myself. Blocked the times I was taken advantage of. Blocked all the silent, bitter, it's fine moments. And I knew, if I don't protect the space of my own life, no one else will ever do it for me. Right after Linda turned her back and walked away from the wall I had built, the entire apartment went silent for exactly 2 seconds. Then, she turned back. Very slowly, her face flushed with anger, eyes blazing like she was about to discipline a misbehaving child. Hannah, do you have any idea? I truly don't understand how you became like this. I just stood there, arms crossed, not arguing, not yielding. She stepped closer, her voice rising. You weren't like this before. You knew how to think of your family. You knew how to sacrifice. But now you're selfish, cold, and only care about yourself. And you know what? That was the matchstick that ignited every resentment I had swallowed for years. I looked at her and, for the first time in my life, I didn't hold back. I asked, have you ever thought about everything I had to sacrifice? Mom frowned, breathing hard in anger. I gave birth to you. I raised you. Isn't that enough? I let out a small laugh, the kind of laugh even I didn't know could sound that bitter. Mom, raising your child, feeding them, clothing them, sending them to school, that's a parent's responsibility. It's literally written in the law. It's not an investment for which I have to repay you with my entire life. Her expression darkened like a storm was about to break. I continued, slowly, clearly, every word sharp. When I needed a car so I could study and work at the same time. Do you remember what you said? We don't have money. Figure it out yourself. When I needed help with tuition, what did you say? Take out a loan. We're saving money for Emily. And when I worked 2 jobs, barely slept for months just to pay debt, do you know what you did? You threw a party for Emily because she got a receptionist job she quit 3 months later. The hallway froze solid. Emily lowered her head. John clenched his jaw. Dad stood stiff, still holding a bag like a wooden statue. And my mom? She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I looked at her directly. You said you raised me. But were you there when I cried in the office bathroom from stress? Did you ever once ask, "Are you okay? Do you need help? Are you tired?" Just once? Ever? Silence. I answered for her. No. You never asked, because you thought I was strong. You thought I was capable. You thought I could handle everything. And you used all of that as an excuse to take from me. Dad finally stepped in, voice low and heavy. Hannah, you're going too far now. I turned to him. Do you remember the time I came home and said I had to be taken to the ER because I collapsed from overworking? Do you remember what you said? You're young. Push through it. Everyone goes through this. Then you changed the subject to Emily's breakup. His eyes flickered. Mom stayed silent. I looked at both of them, my voice calm in a terrifying way. And now, just because I won't let Emily live here, I'm suddenly the traitor of the family? John snapped at me. You don't care about me anymore, do you? I stared at him for a long moment. John, you're 32. You still live in your childhood bedroom. You have never paid your own electricity bill, your own water bill, internet, insurance, plumbing repairs at 2 a.m. You've never known what it feels like to stand in a grocery store holding food and wondering if you'll have enough money for the month. The only thing you know how to do is criticize others. John's face went pale. Emily quickly shook her head. Hannah, don't say that. I'm sorry, I really am. My voice softened as I turned to her. I'm not angry at you, Emily. I'm angry at the years of unfairness no one ever saw. I've been the family's life raft since I was 16. Every time something goes wrong, who gets the first call? Me? Who lends money and never gets it back? Me. Who is always assumed to have a room available in her home? Me. Emily fell into complete silence. Linda sank into a chair, breathing fast like she'd run a marathon. I didn't know you felt this way about me. I answered gently, because I was never allowed to say it before. Dad looked at Mom, then at me. Then what is it you want now? I said plainly, I want boundaries. I want this home to be mine. Only mine. I want you to stop treating me as the solution to every problem. I want the right to break down, to be tired, to say no without being labeled ungrateful. Dad opened his mouth, but I cut him off. And most importantly, I want to stop being used. At this point, Mom started crying. But this time, her tears didn't shake me. Because I knew this wasn't real pain. This was the pain of losing control over me. Emily was the only one who spoke honestly. I'm sorry. I got too used to having you carry everything for me. I didn't realize how heavy it was for you. I nodded. It's okay, Emily. But now it's time to stand on your own 2 feet. Finally, Mom stood up, grabbed her purse, wiped her tears. If this is what you've decided, I have nothing left to say. Let's go. Dad didn't look at me again. John walked past me like I was a stranger. Emily bowed her head, unable to look me in the eye. The door closed behind them. The lock clicked into place. And in that exact moment, I felt something I had never felt before. Freedom. Painful, but freedom. After the door closed behind my parents and John, the penthouse fell into a silence so deep I could hear the air conditioner, and even the faint sound of the coffee mug I'd placed on the table minutes earlier. I stood there, unmoving, not crying, not shaking, not screaming. Why does my family treat me like this? None of that. Just silence. A kind of silence I had never experienced in my entire life. You know something? My whole childhood, my teenage years, my adulthood were filled with noise. The sound of Mom scolding Emily, then sighing at me, Dad lecturing me about duty, John accusing me of always acting superior, Emily crying about something while everyone rushed to fix it, the blame, the expectations, the disappointment, and the fake guilt I forced onto myself. Hannah, you have to help your family. Who else do they have? When that door shut, all that noise went dead quiet. And I swear, that silence felt like I was breathing fully for the first time in years. The silence lasted exactly 3 days. 3 days. Exactly 3. No knocks on the door. No calls. No chaotic family group chat. No 3-page texts about disappointment and duty. Just quiet. In the mornings, I made coffee and drank it in the sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows. In the evenings, I played soft music, cooked small meals just for myself. I went to work, came home, turned off my phone, lit candles, lay on the sofa and watched the city. And during those 3 days, all I kept thinking was, so this is what life feels like without family drama. Lonely? No, I wasn't lonely. I felt free, light. Like I had just taken off an 80-pound backpack I thought was responsibility. I slept well. So well that I woke up surprised, because I didn't dream about rescuing someone in the family. But I knew that peace wouldn't last. My family? They don't stay silent for long. Day 4. The phone finally rang. It was noon. I was at the office going through shipping manifests when my phone lit up. The name on the screen, Mom. I stared at it. My thumb hovered over decline, then paused. Not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I wanted to see, do I still fear this woman the way I used to? Turns out, no. Not at all. I answered. Mom's voice came through. Calm. Unnaturally calm. Hannah, I think we need to talk. My voice was steady. About what? She began reading from what sounded like a script. About how you treated the family. About the wall. About how you embarrassed us. About your responsibility toward your sister. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. The city was shifting seasons, leaves turning color. Mom, Emily isn't my responsibility. She's yours and Dad's. Mom paused for a second, then switched tones, cold as ice. Ever since you started making money, you've changed. You only think about yourself. You're selfish. This time I actually laughed, not mockingly, but with a sense of release. Mom, I sacrificed my entire youth for this family. I lent money I never asked back. I let people live with me. I fixed everything. But the moment I say no, once, I'm selfish. Mom went quiet, then delivered her favorite line. We are very disappointed in you. Years ago, that sentence would have made my stomach twist, would have kept me up at night. Now? I know, but I don't care anymore. And I hung up. No waiting for more accusations. No apology. No explanation. No fear. I simply put the phone down and went back to work. The messages, a new kind of war. After that call, the storm began. John, you ruined the whole family because of your ego. Mom, 3 long messages. Ungrateful daughter. Family means sacrifice. How could you do this to your sister? Dad, voicemail. You need to think carefully. Don't let success blind you. And Emily? Emily sent just one short message. I'm sorry for putting you in that situation. I didn't know it would turn out like that. I read every message, replied to none. Not because I was angry, but because I knew. If I responded even one word, they would pull me back into the role of the fixer instantly. And I wasn't returning to that life. Blocking them. The real liberation. After 2 days of ringing phones, novel-length texts, and voicemails full of dramatic sighs, I did something the Hannah from 10 years ago would have never dared to do. I blocked every number. Mom, Dad, John, all of them. I didn't block Emily. She was the only one who didn't attack me. When my finger tapped block, my heart didn't tremble the way I imagined. No voice in my head whispered, "You're a terrible daughter." No guilt clawed at me. Just one thing. Freedom. A kind of freedom I never thought I'd experience. Like unplugging a speaker, blasting at max volume for 20 years. And finally, hearing quiet. That night, I stood on my penthouse balcony, looking down at the city. Cool air brushed my face, and the yellow lights glowed across the skyline. I wondered, did I just lose my family? And then I answered myself, no. I just stopped letting them control my life. A calm washed over me. Light, comfortable, strangely peaceful. And I realized, in that silence after the storm, for the first time ever, I was living as someone who finally had the right to choose. After I blocked my parents' and John's numbers, my phone finally went quiet. No more long, guilt-tripping texts. No more midnight calls. No more accusatory voices. But one afternoon, while I was sitting on my cream-colored sofa in the living room, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I hesitated. My first instinct was to block it immediately, but some small instinct, made me pick up. On the other end was Emily's voice, small, cautious. "Hannah, it's me. I borrowed Mai's phone to call. Please don't block this number." I was silent for a moment. Emily was the only one I wasn't angry at, not fully, not enough to shut the door on her. "What is it?" "Emily?" Her voice trembled. I want to see you. Just the two of us." I asked, "No mom? No dad? No John? No family delegation waiting behind the corner?" Emily almost blurted out, "No, no one. I just want to talk to you. Really talk." I let out a long breath, thought for a few seconds. "All right, tomorrow 10 a.m., our usual cafe on 4th Street. Come alone." Emily agreed immediately. And just like that, the meeting was set. The meeting. The next day, I arrived 15 minutes early. Hot coffee in front of me, my hand spinning the ceramic mug absent-mindedly. Not nervous, just unsure what Emily wanted. At exactly 10 Sane, she walked in. She scanned the room and spotted me by the window. Emily looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. No parents cushioning her, no one defending her, no layers of protection. Just a 26-year-old woman facing the consequences of being sheltered for too long. She sat down, fingers intertwined tightly. "I don't know where to start." I looked at her, calm. "Start with what you need to say the most." Emily lowered her gaze. It took her a long moment before she spoke. "I'm sorry, Hannah. I'm sorry for letting everything turn out the way it did." I raised a brow. "You mean the whole wall situation? Or the part where the entire family tried to move into my home without asking?" Emily bit her lip. "All of it. I was wrong for letting Mom and Dad decide everything without even talking to you. I know. You hate that." I stayed quiet, letting her continue. She inhaled deeply, gathering courage. I know Mom and Dad always favored me, but I never realized how much it hurt you. I answered gently, Emily, favoritism isn't the problem. The problem is, the whole family always assumed I was the pillar, and you were the one who got to lean. Emily nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I know. I got used to being protected, and maybe used to the idea that you'd always help me, even if you never said so. But when I heard what you said that day, I realized I've never really lived on my own 2 feet. That sentence made me pause. It was the first time she had ever admitted that. Emily begins to change. She told me that after that day, she found a small shared apartment and paid for it herself. No parents involved. She enrolled in a medical records management course, a field with a clearer future. Then she said something that surprised me. I know you don't want me to struggle. You just want me to grow up, to take care of myself, to stop depending on you. I looked into her eyes, not to judge, but to see whether there was any trace of avoidance or lies. There wasn't. For the first time, Emily was being honest. So, what do you want from me? I asked. Emily shook her head. Nothing. I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to know I understand now. I'm taking responsibility for myself. And I don't want to lose you. That last part softened me, just a little. A conversation we should have had years ago. Emily lifted her head, finally meeting my eyes. Can you forgive me? I answered immediately, not emotional, but sincere. I'm not angry at you, but you need to understand, I'm not the one carrying the whole family anymore. If you want me in your life, you have to respect that boundary. Emily nodded quickly. I understand. I really do. A comfortable silence settled between us, not tense like before, but reflective. 2 sisters finally listening. Then Emily asked something that struck me. Do you think we can ever go back to how we were? I smiled sadly. No, Emily. I don't want to go back to how we were, because how we were was good for you and terrible for me. But we can rebuild something new, healthier, more respectful, more equal. Emily's eyes grew a little red, but she nodded firmly. I want that. A small hug. But enough, when we got up to leave, Emily stepped closer and asked quietly, Can I hug you? I didn't answer verbally, just opened my arms a little. She hugged me gently, not clinging, not expecting me to fix anything. A hug of gratitude, a hug of accountability, a hug from someone finally trying to grow up. I hugged her back, not tightly, just enough for her to know I wasn't closing the door on us, only on being exploited. Walking out of the cafe, I realized something families don't always change, but people within a family can change, if they genuinely want to. Emily did. And I respect her for choosing growth. Not every relationship needs to be cut off completely. Some relationships, with honesty, courage, and self-awareness, can be rebuilt. Not like before, not like childhood, but better. After my conversation with Emily, I stepped out of the cafe with a strange feeling. A feeling I hadn't touched in a very, very long time. Light. Clear. Unburdened. Not because my family had suddenly changed. Not because everything was magically fixed, but because, for the first time in my life, I felt like my life truly belonged to me. Life without family drama suddenly felt spacious. The next few weeks passed with a peace so gentle it almost startled me. Not because I was afraid of peace, but because my life had always been crowded with demands, pressure, expectations, and invisible responsibilities. And when all of that was lifted from my shoulders, life opened up with the kind of space that lets you breathe. In the mornings, I woke up in the soft sunlight pouring through the penthouse windows. No phone ringing, no messages asking for money, no urgent, "Hannah, I need your help right now." I made my coffee, stood by the window, and watched the foggy city slowly wake up. Simple things, but they felt like a whole new life. In the evenings, I cooked for myself, turned on soft jazz. No one barged into my home. No one judged me for living alone in a place too big. The house finally became what a house is supposed to be. My work entered an entirely new chapter. Once my mind was no longer stretched thin by family chaos, my productivity soared. The regional Midwest distribution expansion project I was leading, already a massive pressure, but this time I handled it with a level of focus I'd never had before. And people noticed. One afternoon, my boss called me into his office. "Hannah, I mean this sincerely. We've never seen anyone manage a project that large while keeping everything so clean and under control." A month later, I was promoted to Regional Logistics Director. Higher position, bigger responsibilities. And the salary? It made me laugh when I remembered how my parents used to say, "You have money but won't help the family. So ungrateful." No. This was money I earned with sleepless nights, relentless work, and zero dependence on anyone. I didn't owe anyone an apology for that, and no one could overshadow it anymore. For the first time, I invested in myself. When life finally gave me space, I filled it with things I loved, things I never dared to do before. I started pottery. Every Thursday, I went to a small studio, the soft clay spinning beneath my hands. It was strangely healing. I joined a book club I'd always loved reading, but I never had time because there was always family business to deal with. Now, I sat among new friends, chatting about books, and realized I didn't have to rush home to put out another fire. I traveled alone one weekend. I booked a ticket to Colorado, hiked the mountains, breathed the cold air, read by a clear lake, no calls, no demands, no guilt. And I realized freedom isn't loud. It's the quiet comfort of not having to carry anyone anymore. And then, Nam showed up. Nam wasn't some soulmate who saved my life. He was just an ordinary man, but kind, sincere, and with boundaries of his own. We met at a supply chain conference. He was a civil engineer, thoughtful, calm, a good listener. One evening, when I told him the story about the wall in my family, he laughed. "I think you did the right thing. Honestly, I wish I had built a wall at my house back then." No one had ever said that to me before. No one had ever validated my boundaries as right. Nam didn't lean on me. He didn't need me to fix his life. He wasn't intimidated by my strength. He liked my independence, respected it, and for the first time I didn't feel like I had to shrink or overperform to be worthy of someone. The penthouse, once invaded, now sacred, my home grew into the place I had dreamed of. Plants lining the windows, a full wall of books, the studio I built stocked with a standing desk, a large monitor, and perfect lighting. Every corner reflecting me, not compromise, not sacrifice. Every time I walked through the door, I thought, this is the place I protected with everything I had. Life blossomed, not because I became better, but because I became freer. There's a truth I took years to learn. When you set boundaries, you're not becoming selfish. You're becoming yourself. My family no longer suffocated me. My work flourished. My mind cleared. My relationships grew healthier. My life became soft, intentional, filled with quiet joys. Not because the world changed, but because, for the first time ever, I stopped letting people enter my life as if it were their home. Everything had been calm. No accusatory calls. No mile-long texts from Mom. No passive-aggressive comments from Dad. I thought the storm had finally passed. Until one Saturday afternoon. A strange number. And this time, not Emily. I was standing in the middle of Home Goods, comparing curtain samples for my bedroom when my phone rang. A strange number. My instinct was to block it immediately, my new habit these days. But when the voice came through, I froze in the middle of the aisle. "Hannah, it's John." Immediately my guard went up. Not anger, just caution. Because John had always been complicated. Not malicious, but someone who never truly stood on his own feet. His emotions were always outsourced to my parents. I said curtly, "What do you want?" But John's voice was unexpectedly tired. Not sharp, not defensive, not arrogant. "Hannah, can we meet? I want to talk, seriously." I almost said no, but then John added, "There's something important, something you need to know. And I owe you an apology." For 1 second, I forgot to breathe. John, apologizing. My 32-year-old brother who still ate Mom's food, slept in his high school bedroom, and had never paid a utility bill in his life. Apologizing to me. I considered for a few seconds, then agreed. "Tomorrow, 11 a.m., the usual cafe. Come alone." John agreed immediately. The meeting where I saw a different version of my brother. The next morning, I arrived early as usual. When John walked in, I genuinely jolted. He was thinner, his eyes sunken like he hadn't slept for weeks. Wrinkled shirt, messy hair, hands slightly trembling. Not the John I knew. Not the confident, slightly arrogant, eldest brother knows everything John. He sat down, took a deep breath. "Thanks for coming. Hannah, I was wrong." I said nothing. I waited. John rubbed his forehead. "I thought you were overreacting. I thought you were being selfish. I thought you were trying to separate yourself from the family because you were too cool or too successful." He paused, then looked directly at me. Honestly, for the first time ever. But when I moved out, when I rented my own place, I understood. My brows furrowed. "You moved out?" John nodded. "A month now. A tiny studio, nothing special. Rent, electricity, internet, everything on my own. I'm in shock." I let him continue. "I never knew life could feel this heavy. Never knew how exhausting it is to handle everything yourself. And you've been living like that for years." His voice softened. "Hannah, I'm sorry for looking down on you." I stayed quiet. Not because I wanted to make him sweat, but because I needed to feel whether his words were real. And they were. Painfully real. Then John said the thing that made me sit upright. John inhaled deeply. "But the real reason I wanted to see you is because of Mom and Dad." My heartbeat thudded once. Hard. "What about them?" John clasped his hands together tightly. "They're in serious debt, Hannah. Serious enough. They could lose the house." My eyes widened. "How much?" John shook his head. "Hard to say exactly. They've been stacking credit cards for years. Then bank loans. then private loans. They hid everything. But when I packed my room, I found the papers. A lot of them. It felt like something squeezed my chest. Not out of sympathy, but because a puzzle piece I'd ignored for years suddenly locked into place. John continued, "They're desperate, and they're getting ready to ask you to bail them out." I closed my eyes for a moment. Of course that was coming, when the family is drowning. The first person they think of is always me. John leaned forward, voice low and sincere. "Hannah, I don't think you should help. Really. They created this mess. They need to deal with the consequences." I looked at him for a long time. "Why are you telling me this?" John gave a sad smile. "Because I don't want you dragged back into the pit you just escaped from. Because I owe you more than you realize. And because I want to do the right thing at least once in my life." My heart softened a little. Just a little. Because after all, John was the person I grew up with. Flawed, yes. Sometimes selfish, sometimes oblivious. But at least, he was trying to step out of the family's shadow. John ended the meeting with one message. Before leaving, John stood up and placed a hand lightly on my shoulder. "Hannah, don't let them control your life anymore. I know you always try to be the good daughter, but the price you've paid is way too high." Then he said the sentence I will never forget. For the first time, I'm taking care of my own life, and it's because I finally learned how to say no. You gave me the chance to grow up. Thank you. Then he left, leaving me sitting alone in the quiet corner of the cafe. Part of me hurt. Part of me felt relieved. And another part of me knew with absolute clarity the real storm was still ahead. Because when people are drowning, they will do anything to pull the nearest life raft toward them. And in this story, the life raft they're aiming for is me. I knew one thing for sure after meeting John. My parents would come. And they wouldn't come empty-handed. I just didn't know when. I didn't have to wait long. Exactly 2 weeks later. A phone call from Mom. Sweet enough to be suspicious. One afternoon, right after I finished a meeting at work, my phone rang. The name lit up. Mom. I sighed, thought for a moment, then picked up. Her voice was sweeter than sugar, softer than flan, lighter than a breeze. "Hannah, sweetheart, your father and I really miss you. How about we have dinner together this weekend? We want to warm up the family bond again." If I were the old Hannah, I probably would have teared up at that. But the current Hannah could hear the intention behind every word. I asked bluntly, "What's going on?" She froze for half a second, then said, "Well, there's a small matter we want to discuss with you. Just family stuff." Ah, there it was. I replied, "I'm free for exactly 1 hour. I'll choose the restaurant." She agreed immediately, too quickly, like she was afraid I'd change my mind. Dinner. And two faces trying too hard to look normal. I chose a small Italian restaurant near my office. Not too fancy for theatrics, but respectable enough that no one could raise their voice. My parents arrived early, both smiling, but their eyes were exhausted, worried, trying to hide something. I sat down, opened the menu, and said directly, "Let's get to the main point." Mom placed her menu down, straightened her blouse, took a long, dramatic breath like she was about to pitch to investors. "Hannah, your father and I are having a little financial difficulty." I looked straight into her eyes. "How much?" Dad cut in, voice heavy. "It's just temporary. Money always has ups and downs. We just need around $30,000 to get by for a while. I didn't react. No raised brows. No shock. I just set my water glass down and said, no. A single word. Sharp enough to slice the hope right off their faces. Mom leaned toward me. Hannah, what do you mean? We'll pay you back. We're family. I smiled, without softening even a bit. Mom, you've never paid back anything I've given. Remember the $5,000 for John? The $3,000 for Emily? All the bills I covered, and you said I'll pay you back later? Mom's face flushed red. That was in the past. Things were hard then. And they're not hard now? I asked. She had no answer. Dad placed his hand on the table. Hannah, American or Asian, it's the same. Children help their parents. I stared at him for a long moment. And parents help their children when their children need it. When have you ever helped me? That question stunned him into silence. Mom burst out, I raised you. Is that not enough? I crossed my arms. That's your responsibility as a parent. Not a contract I owe you $30,000 for. Their expressions shifted from hope, shock, disappointment, anger. After a long silence, Mom whispered bitterly, ever since you made money, you've looked down on this family. You're selfish, cold. You've changed. I leaned back, voice calm enough to unsettle both of them. No, I haven't changed. I just stopped letting the family use me. The air around our table thickened instantly. And the final blow, and then I stood up. Mom hissed, Hannah, are you going to leave your parents to starve? I took out my wallet and placed money for my meal on the table. Mom, you're not going to starve. You just have to live within your means. I can't fix 20 years of financial mistakes. I stood, grabbed my bag. Dad called after me, voice trembling with anger. You'll regret this decision. I turned back, smiled softly. I've regretted not saying no for 29 years. Starting today, I'm done regretting. Then I walked out of the restaurant. No looking back, no hesitation, no fear. The night breeze was cool against my face. The city glowed beneath the lit-up buildings. And I realized the thing I used to fear the most was no longer frightening at all. That night, after walking out of the restaurant and leaving my parents with their request for $30,000, I walked through the heart of Minneapolis feeling strangely light. Not light, because I was happy to refuse them. Not light out of anger or some sense of victory, but because, for the first time in my life, I had chosen myself. The feeling of no longer being controlled. You know what that moment felt like? Like taking off a necklace you'd been forced to wear your entire life. A necklace that looked harmless, but had actually been tightening around your throat every day. And when it finally comes off, you realize, I've been suffocating for years. Suddenly, it became clear. My family wasn't hurting because they lacked $30,000. They were hurting because they had lost their power over me. And when I dared to say no, every chain they had used to keep me in place fell off, one by one. The days after that, no one contacted me anymore. No more constant calls, no endless emails about family unity, no angry voice messages from Dad, no crying phone calls from Mom. They were silent. Silent in a bitter way, but also in a freeing way. That night, I opened a bottle of wine, poured myself a glass, stepped onto the balcony, and watched the lights from the high-rise buildings glow. And for the first time in many years, I felt my life was quiet. Truly quiet. No more feeling like I had to be on call 24/7 for family emergencies. No more anxiety every time the phone rang. No more guilt gnawing at me for wanting a life of my own. I was living, fully, without being crowded out by demands, expectations, or endless obligations. Revenge, misunderstood my whole life until now. When I was younger, every time I got hurt, I used to imagine, if only I could get back at them. If only they knew how much I hurt. But now I understand. Revenge isn't about pushing them down. Revenge is about not letting them pull you down anymore. Revenge is boundaries. Revenge is silence at the right moments. Revenge is refusing to let people weaponize pity, duty, or filial piety to control you. Revenge is standing tall and saying, "It isn't my fault you created a problem, and I am not your solution." Simple as that, but stronger than any dramatic payback I used to imagine. Freedom begins with one sentence: I'm not doing this anymore. Once I drew the line, I realized my work improved, my mind cleared, my sleep deepened, my relationships became healthier. The people who truly cared for me stayed. The ones who only wanted to drain me disappeared. So light, so obvious. And that's when I understood. I hadn't lost my family. I had only lost the unfair expectations they placed on me. And when you're no longer easy to use, you become someone new, someone who works because she loves her job, not because she's supporting a whole household, comes home smiling, not exhausted, spends money on herself, not patching up other people's holes, lives the life she believes in, not the life she was forced into. I once thought happiness was a luxury. Turns out, it isn't. Turns out happiness is simply this: not letting anyone treat you like their life raft anymore. Someone once told me this: family is important, but you are part of that family too. If you collapse, no one benefits. I collapsed for years. They just didn't want to see it. Not anymore. Someday, I hope my parents understand it's not that I hate them. It's not that I'm ungrateful. It's not that I've forgotten who they are. It's because I finally understand this. If I keep sacrificing, they will keep depending. And we will all sink deeper together. They blame me for building a wall. But the only wall I ever built was the wall that protected me. And if that is seen as revenge, then so be it. Because at the very least, I am still standing. It's been almost a year since the day my family stormed my penthouse with boxes, insisting on moving Emily in. A year since I stood my ground, didn't back down, didn't apologize. A year since I dared to say one word: no. And now, standing here, in this sunlit apartment, looking out over the city, I see one thing clearly. That wall saved me. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually. My life has become peaceful in a way it never was before. Every night I come home, turn on warm lights, sit on the sofa, make tea, read, without worrying that someone will burst in, text me their misery, call for rescue, or demand something from me. My home is no longer a temporary shelter for other people. It's the place I live, the place I breathe, the place I belong. No one touches it. No one occupies it. No one assumes they're entitled to it anymore. And that feeling, that freedom, is priceless. My career blossomed. Once I stopped carrying the weight of the family, my mind became clear as glass. I worked with a focus I never knew I was capable of. The result? I became regional logistics director. I led major projects with full trust from the company. My boss said I had become the strongest version of myself. And all of that happened because of one word I used to fear: no. Love arrived at the right time. Quietly, gently, Nam came into my life like a breeze. Not loud, not dramatic, just comforting enough to make me open my heart. When I told him the story of the wall, he didn't judge, didn't panic, didn't lecture me about family is everything. He simply said, "You did the right thing. I'm proud of you." And you know what? That was the first time in my life someone truly respected my boundaries. He didn't try to step over them. He didn't try to change them. He didn't ask me to shrink for him. To Nam, my boundaries were the very reason he respected me more. And mature love can only grow in a space like that. Emily, my sister, finally grew up. Emily found her own place, went back to school, got a stable job in healthcare. Every time we met, she said, "You were right. Thank you for not letting me depend on you anymore." And when I look at her, I no longer see a helpless little sister who needs saving, but a woman building her own life. If I had caved that day, Emily would have never grown. John, the brother who used to be the most careless, has changed too. John lives on his own now, pays his own bills, deals with failures and stress without mom and dad shielding him. And he once told me, "Because you said no, I learned how to live. If you hadn't built that wall, I'd still be a 32-year-old man living in my high school bedroom." Does that sting? Yes. But it's the truth. And sometimes, the truth needs a shock to wake someone up. My parents, unchanged, but I am no longer the same. My parents didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge their mistakes, didn't recognize the damage they caused. They downsized, sold the house, moved into a smaller apartment, got jobs to slowly pay off their debts. They chose to blame fate, bad luck, and ungrateful children. That's fine. I don't need them to change for me to live well. I only needed them to stop using my life as their escape route. And that finally happened. And now, standing in my own home, I look toward the studio, the space that used to be the bedroom they wanted to assign to Emily. Between that door and the place I stand, there is still the tall white wall from floor to ceiling, steady, clean, unbroken. I place my hand on it. I smile. Not because it's pretty, not because it was expensive, not because it was clever, but because it represents the first time I truly stood up for myself. That wall blocked the old patterns, blocked the exploitation, blocked the "Hana will fix it" cycle, blocked years of emotional exhaustion, blocked the life I once thought I was obligated to live. But more importantly, it opened a new life. A life where I am, able to choose, able to breathe, able to say no, able to prioritize myself, able to live the way I want, able to be free from unfair expectations. Sometimes, a wall isn't a division. It's a doorway leading you to a better life. A reminder, you are not born to be someone's life raft. You have the right to build walls. You have the right to have boundaries. You have the right to live for yourself. And you have the right to say, I choose me. Because the day you choose yourself, your real life finally begins.